Aaron Moore traveled to the island of Niihau, the forbidden island of the islands of Hawaii. Brianna had sent him to interview the native islanders, but Aaron had gone to meet a man named Vincent Pierce. Some years back, some news reports had been published about how this man had suddenly disappeared. People rumored that he had some sort of supernatural power. It was later found out that he neither went missing nor did he disappear. Vincent Pierce had isolated himself from the rest of the world and was living on the secluded island of Niihau. It was after much request and plea that Vincent Pierce finally agreed to share more about his life to Aaron. Vincent had seen how Aaron had put his life at risk to save one of the islanders. He was impressed by Aaron's goodness and felt that he was someone who was trustworthy. "All right, Aaron, come with me. It's a long story." Vincent escorted Aaron to his hut. He dropped the coconuts inside and came back out and started gathering some dried taro roots that he had set out in the sun. Aaron watched as Vincent placed all the pieces in a large mortar and started grinding it with his pestle. "I've never seen anything like this. What are you doing?" "This? I was making flour to bake some bread for lunch." "Doesn't that take a long time? Why don't you just buy flour from the market in Hawaii? Have lunch with me, and perhaps then you would know." Vincent went inside his hut and brought out another pestle. "You thought it was going to be for free? Come on, help me out." Aaron chuckled as he raised his sleeves. "Of course, no problem, but another request. I was filming a documentary on the indigenous people here. You wouldn't mind if I filmed us making this, would you?" "All right, I guess I could allow you that much." Except, an hour into grinding the dried taro, Aaron was exhausted. He couldn't feel his arms. He was drenched in sweat in the heat of the sun. But it wasn't over. Aaron then followed Vincent through the process of kneading the dough and baking it on top of the open fire. It was hours before they sat down together under the shade of Vincent's hut to eat lunch. "Don't tell me you did this when you were back in the city. This was exhausting." "Are you crazy? Of course not. Now tell me, how do you like it?" Aaron pulled apart the bread and started chewing it. It was the toughest bread he had ever eaten. The grain was coarse and hard to swallow. He felt like he was scraping the inside of his throat. "I guess I'm not used to eating bread like this. It's quite tough." Vincent chuckled as he gave Aaron a piece of his own bread. "Have this. I knew you wouldn't be able to eat that. You were far from grinding the taro properly." Aaron took a bite out of Vincent's bread. It was better, and the taste was great. However, it was the texture that Aaron wasn't used to. The sun would set soon. Vincent invited Aaron inside his hut, and they both sat down on the ground. There wasn't much inside the hut. A small bed made of dried woven vines, a few earthen pots, and drinking vessels. Vincent brought 2 coconuts from the pile in the corner and cut them open. He handed one to Aaron and sat down. "So what is it that you want to know? Is it true that you have supernatural powers? And why did you suddenly isolate yourself like this? Why have you been living away from the other islanders, living this kind of life?" "It's true that I haven't always lived this kind of life. It all began about 7 years ago, when I was living in Fresno, California. I worked at the local high school and rented a studio apartment there. My colleagues and students were all very fond of me. They often praised me a bit excessively." "There you go. It's good as new. Don't worry, Mr. Powell. If you have any issues with the device again, just call me up." "Vincent, you amaze me with your skills. Do you know how many specialists I had to call to get this job done? And you fixed it in minutes. You're a genius." "I agree. Sometimes I wonder what a man like you is doing living this simpleton life. You can literally be whatever you want. You're an intellectual. You will flourish in every field." Perhaps leading a life of a simpleton is what has opened his mind to such an extent. Very impressive, Vincent. But there was one person that I just can't forget, even after being here for so many years. His name was James Koenig. He was a colleague of mine. Everyone respected him for being very kind, compassionate, and very upright. He was a different kind of guy. You wouldn't find many like him, living in the city where all the doors of evil are open. You would never find James partying late into the night or under the influence. He respected women and men alike. He spoke very eloquently and was always ready to help others in need. He always spoke out against injustice, even if he were to suffer a consequence because of it. When I saw you save the girl today, you reminded me of him. In all honesty, he was what you would call a righteous, holy man. It was a horrible day, 7 years back, when we got into a car accident. We had arranged a trip to Laguna Beach with some of our students. However, everyone was supposed to reach there on their own. James and I decided to get there together. It was on the way there, while we were crossing a bridge, that our car suddenly stopped working. James and I tried our best to do what we could. And luckily, James got the engine working again. What we hadn't realized is that the car had suffered major damage in some of the internal gear. Minutes into driving the car, I lost control of the steering, and it crashed into the bridge. James and I were both horribly injured. Our car had caught on fire. I don't remember much of what happened until I was in the hospital. The doctors informed me that James had passed away from the injury, and my recovery would take weeks. The night at the hospital, I had an awful dream. I saw James standing in front of me. He looked enraged. His eyes were red and watery, and his hands were curled up into a fist. He suddenly started yelling at me. "Why are you alive? You're not supposed to be alive." "I'm sorry, James. I couldn't save you. If I could take your place, I would. I never desired a long life. I was willing to give up my life to save others from you. You're not supposed to be alive. As long as you live, you will only harm people. You will harm mankind." "What are you talking about? How will I harm people? I haven't done anything." "It's time you end your life, Vincent. On your shoulder will rise the power of an evil one. You will be instrumental in his reign over all. Everyone will be doomed, all because of you, because of the deeds you are bound to commit. Before time brings out your true nature, end your life, Vincent. End your life." I couldn't understand what the dream meant, or what James meant when he said I would harm others. His demise was difficult on me, and when these dreams continued to occur, I went into depression. I decided I needed a break from everything, and I quit my job and moved to Coos Bay, Oregon. I rented a small house there and was then living on the little savings I had as I searched for a new job. The people in the neighborhood were nice, and so was the environment. I used to sit out on my patio every now and then. I would see a young girl riding her bicycle across my house. Her name was Nancy Holmes. She was 8 years old, very friendly, respectful child. I used to ask her how she was doing. Sometimes I would humor her in a game of hopscotch. Playing with her brought a source of solace in my life. She used to live nearby, and she told me she would ride her bike to the park every day with her parents. It was after that I too started visiting the nearby park. I spotted Nancy arrive with her parents every day. She used to ride her bike all around the field while her parents would sit together on a bench. When they would leave, she would follow them back on her bike, waving at me. But it was one afternoon that she didn't come. However, I saw her parents sitting together on the bench. I waited a while, assuming she had rode off. But then I saw her parents were about to leave. I called them out and asked them about her. "Mr. and Mrs. Holmes, I'm Vincent Pierce. I live nearby. Your daughter often passes by my house on the way here, but I haven't seen her around on her little bike today. I hope she's okay." "Excuse me? What do you mean you've seen my daughter?" "I'm sorry, Nancy Holmes is your daughter, right?" The parents looked at each other with a bewildered expression. "Mister, my daughter is no more. Nancy passed away in her sickness 3 years ago when she was only 8. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and neither could the couple believe what I was saying. They invited me to their home where they showed me pictures of their daughter, the same little girl I had seen and spoken with. It was from then that I realized I was able to see spirits. I can see the souls of the deceased as they pass on from this life to the next. I started seeing the world anew. I could see many souls walking right among us. Yet the ordinary person doesn't notice them. I was amazed and bewildered at the same time. I started to believe I was gifted, until one day something bizarre happened to me. It was then that I started to suppose this was a curse. This was no gift from above. I was sitting by Lake Merritt one evening when a boy approached me. The sun was setting and the skies were red. There was something strange about the boy's appearance. It seemed as if his eyes were dark and black. There was an intensity in the way he looked at me. "Vincent, I've been waiting long for your arrival." "Excuse me, do I know you?" "I'm Desmond Stone. Have you not recognized me?" "Desmond, I'm sorry, I actually haven't." "I am Prince of my father, King of this world. I am your Lord, the Dark Lord." Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.